Welcome to another session of the Learning SEO Accelerator. In today's session, we're going to discuss how do we set SEO goals, right? This is one of those key aspects that is not necessarily technically focused, and many times, unfortunately, we don't pay the attention that it needs whenever we're learning about the fundamentals of SEO. However, independently of the type of SEO process that we do, is something that we will end up running into in a situation that we need to understand how to address in a way that is not only reasonable for us, but for our clients, our bosses, the decision makers, those who hire us, whether in-house or externally, to develop the SEO process, right? I understand that whenever we do SEO processes for our own websites, this might look a little bit straightforward, right? What do I want? I want rankings, to improve my rankings. But the question is why? Are rankings really the ultimate SEO goal? No. We know that we don't, because we don't make money. We don't necessarily make our lives by going from position 10 to 1 per se, right? I mean, that is an indicator that things are improving as we wish, as we want, because we have done our good work. But that is not the goal. That is the bridge to the goal. And ultimately, the goal will be likely something connected with the revenue of the business, how the business makes money. That can be, if it is a publication, to grow impressions, because that is how they make money, showing more advertisement, or generating more leads to their affiliates, if it is a business that relies on affiliate, or to sell more services, or to sell more products. If this is an e-commerce, going to grow the revenue of this and that product line that we want to promote and we want to grow this next year, the next 6 months. Or if it is a service-focused business, I imagine you're a digital marketing agency. You want to generate more requests for your services from those potential audiences. When ranking well, for really relevant terms, right, to ensure relevance and a higher conversion rate from this request at the end of the day. But as you can see, our goals should be highly connected with what the business needs from a revenue ROI perspective, right? The return of investment of whatever they put into the SEO process should be, at the end of the day, positive, right? Otherwise, they should better go and do whatever else rather than SEO to grow their revenue, because there are so many ways to do this from a marketing standpoint: PPC, paid social, etc. Right? There are so many ways to grow email marketing, etc. Right? But so ultimately, what it is important here is not only show that, well, we can achieve their goals, the business goals, and SEO is the perfect channel to do this, but that this is also going to be cost effective and scalable. That unlike paid social or paid search, they won't need to be paying every time that a user clicks, that there will be a lot of investment from a technical content standpoint, but that this investment is also going to compound over time, that this investment and best practices are also going to help from a UX and conversion standpoint. And this is not necessarily at a spend, but also an investment on their website at the end of the day. And then, of course, it requires us to really understand the website business model. What is a conversion for them? What is a good revenue for them? What is the growth that they have established? And also to validate and to assess if it's something reasonable at all, right? Because we, especially like new clients who have never done SEO, smaller businesses, non-sophisticated businesses, if we ask, what is your goal? Well, I want to grow 1,000% year over year, or something like that. How can we validate that is something that is reasonable to do or to achieve? And if it is feasible to do it with organic search, because we might do a keyword research and identify that the total addressable market, that all the search opportunity out there that we can bring traffic from is not even enough to achieve so many clicks that will end up generating a certain number of conversions and revenue with a very low conversion rate that many businesses might have, right? So it's important to do all these validations and take all of the criteria into account. And to start tackling all of these different topics, I will start by asking Kevin Gibbons, who's our today's the guest with a lot of experience, as I have mentioned in the past, on this particular topic. Kevin has pretty much established himself and his agency as one of those to-go SEO agencies, highly specialized. He has done SEO first as a consultant, as a very well-experienced SEO specialist on one hand, and then on the other hand, with his own agency, Rosino, who he has been leading. So he doesn't only has this wealth of experience handling and developing SEO processes, but actually establishing goals, measuring goals, agreeing with clients, and negotiating with clients, communicating with clients, this management of expectations. So he has tons of experience about this. Hello, Kevin, how are you? I'm so delighted to have you here today.
Yeah, hi, Leda. Yeah, no, very good, thanks. And yeah, happy to be joining.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you very much. And to start a little bit with the Q&A with you today, what would you say that are the steps and criteria that you tend to follow every time that you need to start with a new SEO process and set goals that you know that will connect with the company business, that the decision makers, even if they are non-technical, they will understand, to also secure buy-in later on in the process?
Exactly. And I guess to give context, my role is I've done a lot of SEO in the past, originally from 2003, but I've also run a business since 2006, 2007. So over that time, I've probably been less involved in kind of over the last few years, the hands-on implementation. I'm still involved in a couple of kind of like client quarterly meetings and some of our new biz pitches, but it's kind of developed from being kind of less day-to-day as a consultant and more kind of on the new biz side. And I think that really helps to frame how you would set goals originally, because from our perspective, anyone that makes a new business inquiry because they want to work with an SEO agency has to know what potential return they would be getting for their investment. And for me, I have a framework of how I would like to get information from people at that point in time, but I try to make the conversation as natural as possible. So it's more there for pointers of, okay, well, where do I need to get to, and how do I make sure I leave this conversation having all of the right information? So I would say originally, or initially, I would ask them about the business. So I probably wouldn't start with SEO. I would start with, actually, let's make sure that I'm clear, I understand what the business does and how they make money. There's quite a lot of people that would come to us and I don't understand their business model. And if I don't understand their business model, I don't understand how we can help them, because it has to work backwards towards that. And as Elena said, the goals and objectives can be different. If it's like we specialize in e-commerce, and if it's a retailer, quite often that means that they want to increase their organic revenue, which makes sense, but you can dig deeper into that in terms of what that actually means. They might get a high percentage of returns, they might not be highly profitable in terms of profit margin. So having a business conversation initially around, okay, well, what's your business model? What are your goals and objectives as a business? How does that feed into your marketing strategy? And then you get down specifically into SEO and say, okay, well, our marketing strategy this year is we want to grow by 40%. We think that based on the investment that we're making, 20% of that growth is going to come from SEO. And these are what the real numbers look like behind that. And then you kind of get a bit more of a sense about what they're looking for. You'd ask more questions around customer profiles and more information, but it's not data-led in the sense of looking through analytics at that stage. It's a conversation about understanding the business, and then that would follow afterwards.
Perfect, excellent. So can you please share a little bit of like the different stages? So first you say, okay, a client comes and say, okay, Kevin, I want to grow the revenue of all of my, let's say, iPhone sales by 30% year over year. can you please help us to do that with an SEO process? What are the usual steps and criteria that you will take into account and follow to validate if that is feasible at all, and to start a process that is aligned to connect with those goals and achieve those goals?
Yeah, so it would still ask with questioning. And again, we would go and we would back up this with data following that. But we would ask them, are you market leader? Or where do you see yourself within the market? Because if they're, say, fifth or sixth in the market, then potentially increasing that market share should be possible if others are doing it. And in theory, and again, there's a lot more that needs to be checked. If they're market leader and they're already performing extremely well, it might be a bit more tricky to say, actually, we're going to take away market share from those who are in second, third, fourth and pull away from the pack. So there'd be questioning around certainly where they're positioned. The competitor analysis would follow from an SEO perspective. So you'd want to understand, okay, well, that's who they see as their competitors. Who do we see as the real online competitors? And what do we see as the potential to improve? So again, there'd be forecasting involved. As a follow-on step, we would get our SEO strategists to say, this is what we think is achievable if you were to maximize performance. And one of our values at Resignal is realistic optimism. We don't like to give people, just make up a number to say, okay, this is your target. Of course, we can deliver that without sense checking any of it. But we do want to be optimistic. We want to help them to grow. But like I say, we don't want to put numbers onto setting expectations that we don't think we can achieve. So we would double check absolutely everything that we think is possible. And then, the conversation would come down to, yes, you can do it, but there's a budget to pay in order to achieve that. And I think quite often a client, certainly in a sales process, you either need a budget or a target, I would say. If you have a budget, you can quite often tell people what you can do for that budget. If you have a target, you can then tell them how much it would cost. And it's all within ranges, it's all predictions.
Right, if they come and say, oh, I want this in 6 months, and you
right,
that there's a very high competition, that right now they are not ranking at all for any of the queries for let's come back to the iPhone example, right? Like they have just published their iPhone product line and categories, and they're not ranking for anything. You check and validate that they are literally having indexing issues, crawlability issues, so very core issues. So you will need to do a lot of work just to get these pages into the index, and the competition that they have in the top positions are competitions with millions of backlinks. So realistically,
absolutely.
It's something, and they are very well optimized content wise too. So realistically, it's not something, even if there's room to grow, and it is, let's say, possible to bring that much revenue because there are enough searches for these queries, and that can be targeted and ranked in different ways. It will certainly require much more time than just 6 months, if that is something that the clients ask. So we need to have security and be able to communicate and say, okay, it is reasonable that you want to be the leader in your market, but that won't happen in the next couple of years because you have released this product line. Let's be reasonable, and these are the type of queries that you can reasonable expect to achieve in the next 6 months. And for the next year, this is it, because we will be able, and let's set a goal of getting all of this rankings in the top 10, and these rankings will initially bring this seemingly trivial traffic, but that traffic should be very, very highly relevant, that should convert really, really well, right? And this will quickly compound over time. So the next 6 months, you can expect 10x this, right? Or 5x this, yeah?
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's it. It's kind of, you need a realistic budget. If the ambitions are sky high, the budget has to be sky high in order to reach that. And even then, it's like you say, it takes time. So unless you're going to go out and acquire the brand that's sat number 2 in Google, there's probably not a way to fast track getting to the top. So yeah, it takes money, it costs money, it takes time. And again, that's for us, that's where realistic optimism comes back into it. It's covering all the angles and then being clear on how you set expectations, because otherwise you'll end up saying, oh yeah, of course we can do all of this, and it will take weeks, if not days, for someone to see through that, and it just causes problems that you've just dug yourself into a hole. So yeah, no, it's very much kind of understand what the ambition is, but sometimes you need a bit of a reality check around actually what's achievable within a time frame and a budget as well.
Yeah, 100%. Another thing that I would like to talk about are a little bit of like the mistakes and the don'ts that I see people doing a lot. And we just actually talk about one of them, like saying yes because we want to close the deal, we want to get a new client, without actually checking and validating and properly assessing if achieving that business goal is completely reasonable and feasible with SEO and cost effective at the end of the day too. And realistically, that will end up happening until we do a proper keyword research, a competition research, at least very high level, and then also validate and assess, at least very high level too, the current optimization of the website. We don't necessarily need to do a full audit, of course, before actually like closing the deal with the client, whatever. But if that is why, for me, I always prefer, I will say, okay, after I do the audit and after I do the keyword research and competition research, let's set the final goal that we are happy with, we agreed, because otherwise everything is like this. Because if I don't know if you're properly optimized, or if there's tons of work to do, even from a technical standpoint, maybe that needs to work. We need to spend like 6 months of work, right? And we will need to spend like the next 6 months just to establishing a decent baseline for crawlability and indexability of the website, and trying to achieve something during that time, or there's a migration going, or a redesign going, and trying to achieve a 100% year-over-year growth during that time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Reasonable, right? So that is one of the mistakes. Another mistake that I see a lot also doing is something that you already mentioned, but it's important to clarify again, right? Goal is not going to position first. That is the bridge to the goal. That is first. Domain authority, page rating, domain rating, or whatever metrics that many tools out there provide might be useful or not to track advancement, but it's definitely not a goal and something that the client shouldn't care about if at some point you get clients, because I'm afraid that I have heard things like that. Thankfully, I work with clients that are a little bit more sophisticated, to have a little bit of that understanding, and I don't need to evangelize, but you might at some point eventually. So if you get at some point a boss for a client saying one of our goals, and they say, hey, these are the SEO goals for next year, 20% growth in that, get 1,000 backlinks, or get going from a domain rating from, I don't know, 30 to 40, something like that. That is not a goal. These are metrics that might be useful for us to see if whatever tactics we are doing are growing as expecting, or evolving as expecting, or not. But I mean, getting 1,000 backlinks might be or might not be useful to achieve the goal at all, because that is the outcome of a tactic or tactics that we have done. If we have assessed that link popularity is something holding, or the lack of link popularity is something that is holding us from achieving results and our goals, right? But these backlinks might go to the wrong pages anyway, or pages that are blocked or no index, etc. So it's per se, as you can see, it might be or might not be useful to track things or measure certain things, but it's not a goal in itself, right? Kevin, what are the other mistakes that you can think of when setting goals or agreeing on goals, and how do you dispel these sort of myths that I'm afraid there are many in this activity?
It's nowhere to start. I think you've covered some really good ones there, and I think for me, I would say have lead and lag indicators. So think about actually what is it that you're doing as a lead indicator that can impact and influence the result, but it's not the end goal. So that could be, let's say you've done your audit, you're strong on technical optimization, your site's very accessible, etc. And you've got a good content strategy and your content's as strong as competitors, but you see your weakness as being link reputation. That's still not the goal. It's a lever that you can pull, but the goal and the objective that you want to achieve is the organic performance, ideally at a business value. So revenue being a good example. So it's what can you do that influences the ending outcome is really important. And then, I mean, I think the links is a good example. We actually turn down quite a lot of inquiries for people that come to us and they just say they want X amount of links per month, or all their focus is on links. We're very much strategy first, and it has to be tied to business outcome. And then if links is the way to achieve that, we'll help a client to do that, normally as part of a wider piece, but certainly not just to kind of generate coverage and then hope that works. It's got to be strategic. The other thing I was going to say is a common mistake that I've seen probably since I've started doing SEO is people measure success based on what's easy to get out of analytics, not based on what's most important to the business. So you will say, okay, well, our analytics is showing us that our sessions are going up. So what? You might get traffic for, I've seen this numbers, a large number of times in terms of a blog post that may drive 100,000 visits a month, and it's got a 99% bounce rate and no one that clicks on that page interacts. Does that mean that your business is performing very well because you've got a blog post that's really popular that no one really likes? No, not at all. So I think actually thinking about how you can turn it, say, from a mistake of taking those metrics that aren't working for you. And one thing that we always advise doing with our clients is to set up a hierarchy of KPIs. So we've had this with a client before. I remember ages ago, they said they had two objectives for working with us as an agency. Number one was to increase organic revenue, and number two was to increase organic traffic. And I remember my reply to them was, what's the most important? Because we don't want to be chasing two rabbits at the same time. And they basically said to us, revenue is more important than traffic, which is the answer I wanted to hear. They don't always say that, it's worth checking. But then you can build a hierarchy of KPIs to say, okay, well, you want to build your visibility against competitors, but that builds into your traffic. And then that traffic turns into revenue. So it's really at the top, the revenue is the most important thing. If you're just generating visibility, hopefully it's visibility that will turn into traffic, that does turn into revenue, but it's being clear about what's most important to you and not just saying, oh, look, we've got more index pages or whatever metric someone is obsessed about. We're number one for a specific vanity keyword that gets 5 searches a month. Those type of things.
There are a lot of examples out there of websites that were huge and had millions of URLs indexed, many of them low quality, that they ended up realizing that was actually hurting the crawlability of the website, the assessment of the content quality overall of the website, and they ended up pruning and eliminating and consolidating, redirecting a lot of these pages, and they ended up getting twice as many visits and better rankings with less than a half of pages because they eliminated half of them. So
exactly. Like, so it's the outcome that matters.
Yeah. So we shouldn't be fixated on these KPIs because these are not the goals. I mean, that is important. Ultimately, the goal should be always the revenue, ROI, something. We make business happen. SEO is nothing if it doesn't generate business. It doesn't generate revenue at the end of the day. Even if we want to, feel that we are technical and we do something sophisticated, at the end of the day, it's all about the business, right? Regarding setting goals and reviewing goals and setting goals that are reasonable, well, we already spoke how to ensure that the goals that we set are actually reasonable. We are going to ask first the client what they want to achieve business-wise in the next 6 months, in the next year, in the next 2 years. And then with that information, we come and we do our keyword research, competition research. We understand what is our total addressable market, the market that we can target with the current content or the content that we can create that is relevant for the business, to understand how we can grow based on the search volume and reasonable share of traffic that we can bring from that search volume at different stages of times if we grow as we expect and if we have the budget and resources to do so. However, what happens if we start developing our SEO process and at some point there is a Google core update and our rankings dropped in half, something like that. Or all of a sudden we realize that our client has stopped having or allocating as much resources or as many resources that we needed, and we are not going to get all the help that we initially thought that we will have for technical and content efforts, right? I can think of these circumstances as reasonable circumstances to, okay, let's do a little bit of a standby here. Let's revise and see if what we had set as a goal still makes sense or not. Or we need to change not only, and when we change the goals, it's not only about changing the goals, but the tactics and strategies that we were using, because they might not necessarily be relevant anymore. And that is, remember that the SEO process is iterative, incremental. So remember, it's not that we have goals and we set the goals now for the next 5 years and they cannot be changed. No, there will be circumstances, situations like the ones that I mentioned before that makes completely reasonable to, hey, let's reassess all of this to ensure if what we had said in the past still makes sense. And of course, the goals should be set for the next 6, for the next 12, for the next 18 months, rather than for the next 5 years, because it doesn't make sense SEO-wise, right? Kevin, can you please share a little bit from your experience? What are the good, like the timelines that you usually use when setting SEO goals, the type of circumstances in which you have faced the need to change the goals based on what had happened, and how do you tackle that? How do you manage that with the client?
So the timelines we normally set, we would set a 12-month objective over what we think we could achieve within that time frame, and that would be based on our analysis. So as you said before, we would have already done kind of an opportunity analysis, some auditing, and this is easier with clients that you've worked with over a long period of time, because you get more of a sense about what you think is achievable, the speed that changes can be applied, etc. So in terms of the level of confidence you have behind those decisions, that increases over time, to the point that we've got clients that we work on performance models with. So probably as a, say, 5 to 10% element of our fee would be tied to a KPI, and that works both ways as a bonus or a rebate. And that helps us to have skin in the game with them. So it's something that, again, going back to what I was saying before, the realistic optimism, we wouldn't put a number and a KPI on that if we didn't believe we could hit it. That said, we know we're not 100% in control of absolutely everything in this situation, and stuff does happen. So it's all down to communication. We're very clear whenever there's a Google algorithm update, we email all the clients, we tell them this has happened. We're normally at that stage, we won't have the answers, but we will look into it. We'll monitor what's happening and keep an eye on what changes are coming through, not just for them, but across all of our clients, and obviously the industry that will share information about this as well. And I think in terms of experience of when this has happened, the biggest example would be a global pandemic. That we had big targets for 2020, 2021 that overnight completely changed, and it changed business models, some of them permanently, some of them for, say, 6 to 12 months. Certainly in e-commerce, we found that after a while, the brands have been doing incredibly well. We also found that there were situations where our work had been doing too well and the products are now out of stock and we need to refocus on other areas. So again, it's communication, it's understanding. We have quite an agile approach. We have project managers that work alongside our SEO, so they have a scrum every morning. They communicate as a team all of the time, but equally keeping that communication flowing with our clients means that when stuff changes on their side, when stuff changes within the market, when Google decides to change the algorithm, we can adapt. And it is kind of, maybe it's quite Zen-like, the kind of like mind like water style of like, okay, well, whatever you throw at me, we'll adapt to it. But you have to. You can't just say, well, we said we'd do this for the next 12 months in January, so we'll revisit it next January, and you've got 6 months. That's madness. That you have to be able to flex and adapt to what's going on around you.
That is great. In fact, this is aligned to this question that I think that is very relevant to this, about any tips on how we can more confidently push back on any SEO goals or renegotiate goals from clients that we know are not achievable. This is the thing, that this requires, as you can see, a lot of good communication skills, understanding of the business, and also like we need to show that we are certain of what that we have done, and this is what is important, that we do our homework, right? That we don't say yes, 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 or no, no, no. But this is also very aligned, and I'd like to do this comparison with a lot of clients or people who haven't had SEO experience in the past. It's like when you go to your fitness trainer, and if I go to my fitness trainer right now and I say, look, in 3 months, I want to run an Ironman. I want to do an Ironman. Please, one thing is what I want to do. And look, I'm not overweight. I go to the gym from time to time. I like to jump rope. I play paddle. I am, in general, we can consider a fit person for my age, right? But let's be realistic. I cannot do an Ironman without dying first, right? In 3 months, maybe in 2 years, if I train at least 3 times per day. And that will require a lot of work. And that will require me probably changing also my diet, proteins, shakes, I don't know what else, right? So it will require a lot of work, even if I am okay-ish right now, fitness-wise, because that's a lot. So you can and you should be able to do these comparisons with your clients. Look, you asking me to rank and to do like grow in traffic and revenue, this level of growth in the next 6 months is like me wanting to do an Ironman, and look, I am fit, but it's not reasonable. That will be doable after we do our homework, after we do our repetitions, after we optimize consistently for the next 2 years, because we will have a good base and we'll be able to do that, right? But otherwise, I'm not telling you what you hire me because I'm the expert, right? I'm the specialist. And indeed, like a trainer, they won't say yes just because you want to hear it. They will tell you what it is. The same with doctors, right? They won't say, yes, you're going to get better without taking the medicine. You need to take the medicine if you want to get better. And you will get better after taking the medicine 6 months, not 2 weeks. Exactly the same, right? So doing these comparisons might help for decision makers or C-levels or clients that are non-technical, so they understand that it's not about you not wanting to do the job, but then being in enough shape, let's say, to achieve this type of results. Any tip in that regard, Kevin?
Yeah, I think so. I think the tip is start with a triathlon, do a 10K, but like you can apply that to certainly what you're talking about with your clients. We've actually had an example this year where we set what we thought would have been probably about 12 months ago realistic objectives, and over the last 12 months, as many people will know, the economy hasn't been great in the UK. Retail has been one of the worst it's been hit, and e-commerce sales have dipped quite significantly. So we've revisited our forecast based on the fact that the market outlook, certainly for the 12 months, is not as positive as it would have been when we initially did the forecast. And we've communicated that with the client. They're aware that it's not just the performance in SEO, that's reflected in other channels. And I say the first tip here would be to try to get a wider context for what's happening for the brand outside of SEO. Sometimes we can be very siloed in what we're doing ourselves, but actually, if you're finding, in this case, we found quite often traffic has stayed quite sustainable at similar levels, but the conversion rate's gone down. And that's not because conversion rate optimization isn't working, it's because the market has less confidence and buyers are not spending as much money. So naturally, the conversion rate dips. Again, it's communication of understanding that we've actually reset and lowered targets with this one client in particular, which is something that I would say we haven't done frequently in the past, but that's better than to say, okay, well, 3 to 6 months down the line, we think we need to reset because of the market, and we want to be working together with you on something that we feel is achievable, as opposed to waiting to the end of 12 months and then everyone's disappointed. And in that situation, what we've done, because you don't want to be the agency that makes excuses because we're not performing, we've given a market context to that. So we've said that the market is dipping against your competitors from an organic visibility perspective for a large set of keywords that we're tracking. Across that group, we're actually outperforming most of them, if not all of the competitors. So as a like-for-like comparison, from an SEO standpoint, we're actually doing very well. But the market has dipped. There's less people searching, there's less people buying, and our slice of the pie might be growing, but the overall pie has just got smaller this year. So I think, again, it's down to communication. If you can talk their language and get them to understand, okay, well, this is what we're talking about from a wider business context, then they can understand where you're coming from. If you just say to them, conversions are down, traffic isn't going up, we're behind target, well, you'll probably get fired because you haven't achieved the objective. So there's a wider context and an explanation and story that needs to go around it. And I would say, talk to your key stakeholders, whether you're in-house, whether this is a client agency relationship. They will have these types of conversations with other people, with other channels, with their boss. And the more that you can align yourself to their objectives and the conversations that they're having themselves, then it makes that so much smoother. But stuff does change. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. And in both situations, you need to be able to, kind of make sure that you're addressing and adapting in the right way.
100%. One of the questions here that I see also, just to ensure, because it's something key, right? How can we set the goals that we are really sure that are relevant to the growth targets of a client business goal? Just an example, right? If our client comes and say, look, I have an e-commerce store and I want to grow. Again, I sell laptops. I sell handhelds. I sell watches. iWatches. If we know that what he wants is to grow the revenue from their smartphones sales, when we do the keyword research and the competition research, and we understand how many searches there are for queries that are relevant, we are not going to take into account those that are from products that we know that they don't want, he doesn't or she doesn't want, or doesn't have as targets, right? Are not targets for them. We are going to focus on those of the smartphones, because these are the ones that they want to grow. So it's very simply like this: is paying attention what they actually care about business wise, right? And if they want to sell, and this is the thing, and this where having experience is handy, very likely you will come with a group of queries and say, okay, these are all of the queries through the customer journey that people are searching for when buying smartphones that are relevant for you in your country, in your language. And a good share of this are able to be ranked with your product pages and your category pages or facets, but there's this share where there are only guides ranking and how-tos rankings. And this is where you will recommend, okay, of course, we are not going to focus on your blog only, because then it's very unlikely that you will grow your revenue by only creating informational content, obviously, but you need a mix. You need a mix of transactional and commercial content, and optimizing your commercial areas, and also your guides, because we know that this is key for the customer journey. When people are making the decision of what to buy, when to buy at the beginning of the process, especially. So these are pages that are not going to generate conversions right away. Obviously, people are not going to buy as an outcome, but that will compound again and will allow the user, the website, to get backlinks, authority, the users to get into their conversion funnel because they will register into the newsletter, etc. So it's important that, again, expand our views and our conversations of things that the recommendations that we give and the goals that they have can connect with the goals in other ways, right? Not only by generating a sale directly, and that's it. We know that attribution here is sophisticated and it's tricky to set, but it's important that we establish ourselves with enough authority to recommend them, because this is, I'm mentioning this because especially if you work a lot with e-commerce, I know that Kevin, you do too, you will get a lot of pushback. I don't want to be optimizing or creating guides. I want to optimize my category and product page. Like, take a look at which are the pages Google is ranking for these queries right now. They are not categories. They are not products. These are guides. So of course you need to make the guides that make sense commercially for you, not generic ones that are not like establishing yourself as a vendor, right? Like you need to tie and need to align. Again, common sense, but unfortunately, many times this is developed with experience, right? Anything that you would like to align or add here, Kevin, to ensure that goals and our activities are connected together?
I think it's, a couple of things on that. I think in terms of you create content for different reasons, so you should measure it for the reason that you created it. Quite often, like you're saying, you would create something to build top of funnel awareness, but then you're judging the performance of that content on conversion rate, and it doesn't make sense. It's got to be around actually what's the next step. Could it be you've got a guide and then you capture an email address? So it might be more micro goals as opposed to macros. So make sure that you've got that within your measurement, and then you can build a case for having more content like that because it's performing for the reason that you created it, as opposed to trying to measure it in a different way. And I think if you're creating that content, like you say, maybe you're not getting buy-in for creating that content. I mean, I just always think that people don't like losing. So if you can just show someone that, okay, we won't create that content and your closest competitor is going to win. That's normally quite a compelling way for them to say, okay, well, maybe we should do something about this then. No one likes losing. So I think it's just showing them that there's more than one route that you can get in terms of attracting customers and generating sales, and the more that you can kind of attack it from all angles, that's certainly going to help you.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for all the insights, Kevin. To start wrapping up, I would like to finish with this question that is important to that I see that we haven't clarify on or tackle yet, about how often do we report on SEO goals. This should be, again, aligned with the work that is being done in the first place and how much we advance. I have seen many clients, if you ask the clients, how often do you want me to send you the report? They will say every day, but you don't even launch anything every week. You launch stuff like every 2 weeks. Like, it doesn't make sense that I report on anything every day, not even every week, not even every two. If you launch something every 2 weeks, it doesn't make sense to be monitoring or checking or validating every 2 weeks, right? It's like before and after, and then monthly reports make sense. Usually the cadence that is reasonable for this type of processes, given how long-term they are monthly reports. That doesn't mean that you won't be that. These are two different things, right? Monitoring and reporting. Reporting is to report and communicate the outcome of your goal, of the evolution of your process and the outcome of your activity, and if you have how far of your goal you are, and if you are advancing as intended or not, to decision makers and the areas and people involved, stakeholders. But monitoring, that is what you do on your day-to-day basis. You do it with your own dashboards, with your own tools, etc. Right? So these are different things. But yes, let's not allow that to get pushed into report every other day or every week. In SEO, it doesn't make sense. Nothing, very little. And of course, when there's something that is different, outstanding, again, common sense, core update comes and unfortunately hits in a positive or negative way, and changes a lot, then you will need to send that report, one-off report, communicating that particular change, right? But it's not that every week you should be doing it, right? So yes, that. Yes, Kevin, anything that you
totally.
want?
No, I'm just thinking it's almost like if you're watching the stock market. If you watch the stock market, it might change every hour. If you watch Google's ranking report, it might be the same. But realistically, if it's going up month on month on month, or even if you have a couple of months where there's a dip, but longer term, it's going in the right direction. I think that's something that you have to almost like check yourself and make sure that you're happy with the medium to long-term progress. I think it's hard to have a one-fits-all, but I can talk you through what we generally do for our clients. And that is we have dashboards using Google Data Studio, Google Looker, as it's called now. So we would have dashboards set up for different profiles. So we would say for the SEO team, they would pull in stuff from Search Console and information that they might need to go into every day, whether they do that through the dashboard or Search Console itself or other third-party tools is a different question, but they have that data at their fingertips whenever they need it. That works on a monthly basis. I'm generalizing a bit here, but say the marketing manager, they would have a report about this is what's happening from a revenue perspective, this is what's happening from an overall traffic perspective and visibility against competitors. So you've got that market data. And then on a quarterly basis, we run quarterly business reviews, so QBR with each of our clients, typically face-to-face, if not as a virtual call. And that's where we would create a report that's very customized in terms of what's happening for key stakeholders against the KPIs that we've set and where are we against that. Equally with learnings, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, what are we going to do next to address that or just anything to change. And that can involve, say, the marketing director, head of digital, sometimes procurement are interested in being involved to see how things are progressing across the contract. And there would be a dashboard that's set up. So you could say, if it's a global company, you could say, this is the overall global impact. This is what's happened in the UK. This is what's happened in the US, et cetera, et cetera. And you can kind of give the data in a dashboard for view that people can drill down into if they want more detail. So it's there. But equally, you've got standardized reporting for the different audiences at different intervals. It's quite rare you would get a marketing director that wants to be involved monthly, certainly not weekly. And but quarterly is a really nice check-in point. And again, it's a two-way conversation. What's changed on your side? What are we doing on our side? And how do we make sure that the next quarter is as successful as possible? So I think understanding, firstly, the different audiences, the information that they would like to see, and then the frequency of which they would like to receive it is really important.
At the end of the day, it's also about communicating if everything is going as intended. And if not, we need to come up and propose alternatives, because the client really doesn't care if we are going to achieve those rankings by building links or doing content or doing, like, at the end of the day, for them, it's all about the revenue and the growth, right? So as long as we say, okay, we are not hitting our goals, like what we should have at this point of the process, because this hasn't happened, or the execution of this is delayed, or we haven't had technical implementation, whatever, like, okay, that's great. But what else? Like, what do you propose? We should have enough capacity to propose actions of whatever challenges we're seeing or whatever issues or problems. So our reporting, and we are going to talk about also when we have our session about reporting and SEO measurement too, that if we see that our goals are not being met, that we come up with alternatives that we at the end of the day, we end up achieving what they have wanted in the first place, which is the revenue, the goals, and we can do that in so many different ways. But that is why it's so worthy to have these conversations, to get these validations, and to have the trust to be able to propose alternatives of whatever we're seeing that is happening, right? So thank you very much, Kevin, for all of the insights, all of the ideas, all of the tips. I really, really appreciate that. I think our today's session has been so interesting and different, and hopefully valuable for all of the participants and everybody who watches it, to learn more about how to reasonable set SEO goals, what to do and what not. And hopefully there will be many more questions. If you have any questions, if you have doubts, you can also leave it in YouTube. This is published over YouTube, or send our questions over Twitter. Also, if you're watching this openly, and maybe it will be also a fun way to start even bigger conversations regarding this topic that give for so much more. Thank you very much again, Kevin. What a lovely way to let's say set the base of what to do when establishing SEO goals with our participants today. Thank you very much.
Of course. Yeah, more than happy to help. Thanks, Ada.